This is Ironhead with Hammer and Hand Custom Cycles. I'd just like to start this out by saying, sorry we haven't really made a video in a while. We've been pretty busy lately, and even though we like making videos, just didn't have a whole lot of time to do that right now. But we're making time for this one. Today I'm going to show you just how easy it is to install one of our straight back weld-on hardtails.
Now each one of our straight back weld-on hardtails comes with obviously the hardtail, but then the other thing that's just as equally important is the motor mount jig. Now what this is just a jig that gives you all the same mounting positions as your engine, so when you're installing the hardtail into your old frame, you can be sure that your motor is going to drop back in where it's supposed to. So what we're going to be doing is starting out by getting rid of the part of the frame that we're not going to use anymore. That's going to be the top forge section here, along with the bottom rear forge section. Now you can use any type of tool to do this. Hacksaw works fine. I'm going to be using a reciprocating saw. If you have a portaband, that works great. And what you want to do is you want to start by marking about 1 inch and 3/8 past the center point of the rear gas tank mount. And that's going to be where we're going to want to cut the top off approximately. The reason for this is you might need a little bit more than this taken off. That's pretty easy to take a little more off, always a little more of a pain to add a little more back on. Now as you can see here at the bottom of the frame, it looks like somebody's filled this in with bondo. This is pretty common. What we need to do is we need to cut it off right where the tube goes into the forge section. So I'm going to be taking a chisel and a small ball peen hammer and knocking out all this bondo so that we can find out exactly where that point is. Now when you're doing this with a chisel, you want to be careful as you hold the chisel on the wrong angle and you're going to put a bunch of lines in your steel. So another thing that you can do if you don't want to use a chisel is you can take a torch and actually burn it off, but it's going to make a lot of nasty smoke. That's just another way to get it off there. You can sand it off, sandblast it off. There's a lot of different ways you can get bondo off. Pull those strings and we'll watch them fade away. We're gonna watch them fade away. We're gonna watch them fade away. And there you go, you got it off. This top forge section, these double frame supports, the lower motor mounts, all these forge sections are gone. And that's going to give us a really clean one-piece looking frame. Now here you can see somebody got a little excited with the brazing rod. This is pretty common. There's a couple of different ways that you can get that off of there. Everybody should have a small propane torch at home. And you can heat it up with this. Now you're not going to be able to get it hot enough to actually melt the braze, but by heating it up, you're actually heating the steel and the bronze separately. And I mean that as in they heat up and cool down at different temperatures, steel and bronze, so you can kind of help them separate by heating them up. The fastest way to do this is to take an oxyacetylene torch and just melt it right off without getting the steel hot enough to melt the steel itself. Now even though we have oxyacetylene torches here at the shop, I'm just kind of trying to show you a few different ways to do it. Not everybody's going to have oxyacetylene laying around, and you really don't need it. You don't even need a propane torch. You can just file this off. It's just easier if you're not risking filing the steel. And you can see here it's actually started to peel itself away just from heating it up and letting it cool back down. And from here we're just going to take a chisel and try and knock off as much as we can without damaging the steel. And then you can take your bastard and remove the rest of the bronze. The name of the game throughout this process and even cleaning up the weld is don't touch the tube. You want to try and remove whatever material you're trying to remove without actually filing down the steel of the tube. Now here you can see under that bondo we've revealed a bit of a gouge there. And we're going to fill that in with weld and grind it down later. Here you can see we have this burr kind of coming in where we've sawed it. You can just take a sharp knife, works fine if you don't have a deburring tool, and just run it along the inside to get that out of there. That way when we go to put our hardtail section in, the tubes will slide into these easily. Now we can put our hardtail section on actually. We want to do this by starting with the backbone. Once we have that slid into place, it's common to have to pry a little bit on these. You put your foot down here, you squeeze these together a little bit, and you can slide your other frame section right into it. Now once you have that started, you're just going to want to take a rubber mallet, tap it in the rest of the way. Now what we need to do is we need to make sure that from the rear to the front of the frame our distance is right, and that's where the motor mount jig comes in. We're going to be using all your normal engine mounting hardware to put this in. The only difference is going to be you need a longer bolt to connect the motor mount jig to your frame than you're actually going to be using when you mount your engine in your finished frame. And to connect the front of the engine mount jig, do it the same way you'd put your engine in the frame. They changed the frame, not the engine mounts, so this one engine mount jig works for the early and the later models. Now you can see here it doesn't want to actually line up with the frame. Don't pull it and pry it and get it into place, because you're not actually having the frame where you want it, you're just bending the jig up. So what you want to do is tap in the bottom section more, and that'll lift this up. Same goes if it's down too far. You just need to kind of figure out why it's not lining up and get it to line up without prying on it. And you can see here that lifted it up, and now our holes line up just fine. Now if you're ever having problems actually getting the frame to go in where you want it to, you can flip it right up on its end like this, and you can get a way better hit on it. Sometimes it's hard if you're just trying to tap on it while it's on the floor because it's scooching forward. Now we're going to want to take a piece of flat stock, and we're going to want to clamp this to the front of the frame right above the motor mounts. Now the reason that we're doing that is so that we can have a constant measurement from one side of the frame to the other. And we're going to be measuring from the back of the axle plate up to that flat. Now this distance here really doesn't make that much of a difference. The only important thing is that this matches this. As long as one side of your frame is the same as the other side of your frame, then you know the hardtail isn't twisted or crooked or pulled to one side. This motor mount jig guarantees that you got the right distance from the front to the back, but the thing of it is it's very easy for this to be tweaked in here. And what you can do is you take a ratchet strap. I'll say this side is a little too much. We'll hook this over here, and we're going to use this to pull it together. Now you don't want to actually leave this on there while you're doing it. All this is for is just to get a good little pull on it, and once it moves a bit, even though it's going to move back a bit when we take this off, yep, there it goes. This ought to actually get you what you need. The reason you don't want to leave that on there while you're welding is because when you weld, as the metal heats and cools, it'll pull. If it pulls while there's tension on it, it's going to pull pretty dramatically and you're going to mess it up. You want to have no tension on the frame while you're welding. So another quick check to make sure the sides are equal, and voila, ready to weld. Now you're going to want to leave this flat on there just because we're going to use it later after we tack the thing in place to make sure that the frame's still straight. And as far as welders go, you're not going to want to go a whole lot smaller than a 175 amp welder. This Lincoln 180C, it's a power MIG. Lincoln makes a great small inexpensive MIG welder, and it'll do just about anything you need it to do as far as this kind of work's concerned. And we're going to want to tack it not only on the top but in a couple of spots on the bottom, and you're going to want to do that on the bottom tubes too. Tack it in a few places And this will help keep it from pulling. Another thing that will help keep it from pulling, if you want to, you can do what they call plug welding. And plug welding would be drilling a hole through the frame and then filling in that hole on top of the slug. And that's going to help keep basically everything where it's supposed to be. You're a lot less likely to have it pull together. Now after you've got all your tack welds done, you're going to want to take your tape measure and go back through and measure it again. Make sure that everything stayed where it's supposed to be. And as long as it has, we can go ahead and weld it. Now once you've got it all welded up, what you want to see is the weld bulging out of either side all the way around. You can see here that it actually dishes in, so we're going to need to fill that in a little bit more. And we're also going to want to fill in our gouge here. And then all we need to do is take the weld down to the tube. And my favorite way to do that is a flap disc. These things cost about $5 to $10. As the paper wears down, there's new paper underneath, so it hogs out a lot of material, but it gives you a really nice finish too. You're also going to need a dust mask while you're doing this. Breathing in sanding dust is bad for you, but it's not just the metal in the dust, it's the aluminum oxide from the sandpaper too. Now once you start to actually sand the tube, despite your most careful efforts, that's when you know it's time to stop, because remember, the name of the game is don't touch the tube. From here what we're going to want to do is take our file, and we're just using a flat bastard here. You just want to use this to basically take down the weld from here until you hit the tube. Now you're going to hit the tube. You're bound to. Eventually you're going to start to hit it. And that's okay, but you just want to avoid that as much as possible. The whole idea is to take the weld down till it's exactly the same height as the tube, not remove any of the material from the tube itself. And once you're done cleaning up all your welds like this, then you're ready to roll. Got yourself a nice clean looking one-piece custom rigid frame, and it costs you a lot less than one normally would. And the best part is you get to keep your original title. You don't have to apply for assembler's title. You don't need certificate of origin for your frame. Nothing like that. You're just ready to go. In no time at all, we took a stock frame and we turned it into nice, clean, custom rigid. Thanks for watching. Happy building.